looking at the investment landscape and some of the geopolitics that we're seeing unfold. And we know that South Africa took over the presidency, the G20 presidency, and that's coming up in November. But a lot of events are happening in the lead up to that. What does it mean for the country to have taken over the G20 presidency, and what is Naspers' role in that, and like how are you guys involved?
So we are very excited about South Africa, having the role of running the G20 this year in 2025. And we're also very excited about our role in the B20, where I'm chairing the Digital Transformation Task Force. And on that task force, I have just over 100 members, but I have co-chairs with me who come from the industry. So, my co-chairs are different competitive international organizations like Google and other organizations. And they also have Vodacom local organizations like Vodacom on there represented, and the CEOs of those organizations are co-chairs. And so it's really been great to see how, at a time when South Africa was going through the engagements with the United States, business continued.
Mm.
So from a business perspective, we continued with what needed to be done. It was really, really, that was something that I found very, very comforting. It was incredible to see how organizations and even leaders, I'm just trying not to mention names, leaders of organizations that were very involved in politics in another country, their organizations were actually they are on my task force as well. I feel like I'm talking in.
You could tell us, Phuti.
But so it has really been wonderful to see all of us as international tech organizations focusing on getting the work done. And what has that been? So we started off with working on the policy document. And our policy document has been focused on 4 areas. Looking at the area of digital public infrastructure, DPI, and ensuring that, so through DPI, you have the public and the private sector working together to ensure that, for instance, the passports or, different forms that we have engagement between the public sector and private sector are available. But ensuring that the information that is available there is done in a respectful and, responsible way. So DPI has been an important area there, the digital public infrastructure. And then also looking at the area of connectivity.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that in South Africa and being on the board of Vodacom, just through reading, we all know that our mobile telephony companies have been focused on connectivity, and also our government has ensured that our mobile telephony companies are also investing in rural connectivity. There's still more that needs to be done there, but we need to ensure that people have access through connectivity. And then the other area has been through digital skilling.
Okay.
Ensuring that we can have as many young people digitally skilled as possible, so that they can be real players in the industry, because the African continent is still very much behind when I look at other markets in the rest of the world, in the world of AI. And then the fourth one has been AI ethics. And so these have been the 4 areas that we've been focused on. We've now completed our policy document, and we've submitted it to the leadership of the B20. And all of us have completed our policy documents. And so the next phase now, the phase that we are currently in, is advocacy. And so we are now running a whole host of different events where we are discussing a number of these policy issues, and really looking at how we can make sure that these things that we have discussed and, written about actually come into real action. One of the things that we did in our work was that we came up with a legacy project, because we said, beyond what we are doing, let's have a legacy project that will exist beyond what we are doing now. And so we thought we'd come up with the idea of a fund for entrepreneurs. And it comes back to the issue that we spoke about earlier of early stage and startup organizations not having sufficient support. So we then came up with that idea. Now, obviously, having a fund that is part of the B20, next year it gets handed over to the USA. And so it is looking at how we could still have some kind of a role within that. But that will be within the realms of the B20. And so, with the advocacy process that we're busy now, it's been really, really wonderful to see. So we had our first one just a few days ago, where we actually had the Minister Phuti Mahanyele-Dabengwa of the DCDT, the Department of Communications and Digital Technology. And he came there together with the DG of the DCDT. And we also had all other industry players who were there in the room, Vodacom, Telkom, the CEO of Telkom, Mr. Serame Taukubung, was the main speaker. And he had actually incidentally just visited China with the Minister Phuti Mahanyele-Dabengwa, where they had been talking about how they could accelerate connectivity in South Africa. And it was really good to see just the plans that he has for Telkom that he wants to share with other telco players in South Africa. And it was really wonderful to be able to engage with the minister. It's really been interesting. I think I really hope that we can have more younger ministers. When you look at Minister Phuti Mahanyele-Dabengwa, or you look at our Minister of DIRCO as well.
Minister of Basic Education as well.
Minister of Basic Education. These younger ministers, I find them so much more hungry for solutions, getting things done. And he made it very clear from the beginning. He said, no, reduce the formalities. Because we were looking at the program, I was thinking, the minister's got to be there. We've got to make sure he can give his speech for like an hour first before everything starts. And he said, no, that's ridiculous. Remove that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not, and he was just on the panel. He was on the panel with with a number of executives that we had there from different organizations in the tech sector. And it was just, I loved to see that type of humility in a leader, that hunger for more knowledge, more work, more results for South Africa. And so it was really inspiring to see that, but also the engagement between that panel and the whole audience. I mean, we were like talking the whole time, and I felt bad for Fifi Peters, who was the one who was moderating the panel, and Fifi was trying to manage her panel, and we were all raising our hands. We all had comments for the panel, and so it was a great advocacy session, and then we're going to be having other advocacy sessions, and I think all of us are really focused on ensuring that we can really create a change for South Africa, for the African continent. And that's been the difference with the G20 being held by South Africa, the last Global South country to host the G20, is that there's been a real focus on ensuring that it's not just South Africans, but African people that are running this G20 B20. So all of us within our different teams have ensured that we have that diversity. So whilst as a B20 you'll have people from, so for instance on the DTTF, the Digital Transformation Task Force, I have people from India, from China, from everywhere, all the G20 countries, but I also have a number of people from the African continent as well. And it's really been good for us to be able to all engage on these issues meaningfully. Lastly, is that I've really been happy that we've been able to engage well with the G20. Seeing the engagement between the B20 and the G20 is something that has been really of vital importance. I've also been happy to note I've had discussions with the DG of the DCDT, and it's been interesting to see that the 4 areas that I spoke about of digital skilling, of all of the ethics and connectivity, and DPI are all areas that they're also focusing on, with a little bit of differences here and there. And both of us have focused on small and medium-sized enterprises as well. So it's really been good to have that engagement. But it all comes with the quality of leadership that you have. So having a minister like Minister Solly Malachi has really been very helpful.